Rain hissed against the corrugated roof of the abandoned arcade at the edge of Willowbrook. A town too small to harbor secrets. Yet somehow, it did. Officer Marcus Hale tightened his grip on the leash, feeling the tremor in his K9 partner, Brutus, as the dog's ears flattened and hackles rose. A faint, chilling cry had echoed from behind the boarded windows, dragging Marcus's stomach into icy knots. Brutus refused to move forward, his growl low and insistent, as though warning Marcus of something he wasn't ready to face. Somewhere inside in the darkness, a truth waited, terrifying, patient, and alive. The storm had not relented. Rain hammered the narrow streets of Willowbrook, turning the once familiar town into a reflection of itself, blurred, distorted, threatening. Marcus Hale kept his flashlight low, letting its beam cut just enough through the downpour to illuminate the puddle-strewn road ahead. Brutus, a massive German shepherd with eyes like molten coal, stayed rigid at his side, muscles coiled and tail stiff. The dog's growl rumbled low in his chest, a warning that Marcus could not ignore. "You hear that, boy?" Marcus whispered, voice hoarse, but Brutus only stiffened further, sniffing the wet air as if it carried a message only he could read. The cry had returned. It was faint this time, almost human, pitiful, desperate, but muffled, as if trapped behind walls that didn't want to let it escape. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Abandoned buildings had their own rhythms, their own secrets, and this one, the arcade, had a pulse all its own. The arcade had been closed for years, a relic from a time when Willowbrook had been alive with laughter and neon lights. The sign above the entrance hung crooked, its letters peeling, and the glass doors were thick with grime. Marcus crouched and tried the handle. It was locked, but that didn't stop the faint thud of movement from inside, followed by the softest scrape of metal on tile. Brutus growled louder, lunging slightly toward the door, then sitting stiffly, refusing to advance. Marcus took a deep breath, trying to steady the hammering of his heart. "All right, Brutus, let's see what's going on in there," he murmured, glancing at his K9. The dog's ears twitched, but his gaze never left the shadows beyond the glass. He pulled out a set of keys. The old lock gave way with a reluctant creak, like a door that hadn't been disturbed in a decade. The smell hit him first, mildew, rust, and something sweeter, coppery, that made his stomach churn. It was the scent of old fear, mixed with something more immediate, more human. Inside, the arcade was a mausoleum of memories. Broken machines, shattered glass, and faded posters littered the floor. The echo of rain hitting the roof was deafening, broken only by the occasional drip from the ceiling. Marcus swept his flashlight across the room. Shadows clung to corners like predators, and Brutus's low growl vibrated in the air, sharp and insistent. A faint shuffle came from back, behind a row of rusted claw machines. Marcus froze, straining to hear. Brutus's hackles rose further, and the dog pressed close to Marcus, his body tense, ready. Another cry, more desperate now, ripped through the building, a child's voice, pleading and terrified. Marcus felt his chest tighten. "Hello," he called softly. "Is someone there?" His voice barely carried, swallowed by the cavernous space. No answer came, only the distant tap of water against metal. He moved cautiously, stepping over broken tiles and discarded tokens until he reached the center of the arcade. His flashlight flicked across the room, revealing a faint shape behind a tilted prize counter. It was a little boy, no more than 8, huddled against the wall. His clothes were soaked and torn, his eyes wide and gleaming with unshed tears. Brutus growled again, low and threatening, but the boy didn't flinch. He whispered, his voice trembling, "You're your dog, he saved me." Marcus's heart clenched. "It's all right, kid. I'm here. You're safe now." But the boy didn't move. He seemed frozen, as if the shadows themselves had roots in his feet. Marcus crouched, keeping his voice soft. "Hey, it's okay. I'm Officer Hale. Can you tell me what happened?" The boy's gaze darted toward the rear exit, toward the vent near the ceiling. He's still there. Don't go, please." His small hand trembled as he pointed upward. Marcus followed his gaze. The vent grill was loose, hanging slightly from one corner, and Brutus snapped his head toward it, growling fiercely. The dog's reaction was instant, primal, a warning. Something in that vent wasn't just hiding. It was waiting, calculating, aware. Marcus felt the hair on his arm stand up. He had faced criminals before, but the instinct that Brutus was showing now was different. Pure, unfiltered, almost human in its urgency. His gut told him that whatever had been tormenting this boy, it had claws, teeth, and patience. The boy's voice broke the tense silence. Please, he won't let anyone leave. He likes it when we're scared. Marcus froze, exchanging a sharp glance with Brutus. The words sank like stones. The arcade was no longer just abandoned. It was a cage, and someone or something was keeping them inside. Footsteps echoed from behind the machines. Heavy, deliberate, and slow. Marcus's hand went to his sidearm, though he didn't draw it yet. Brutus shifted, moving in front of Marcus, ears pinned and teeth bared. Another cry pierced the air, this time from the vent itself. The metal grill rattled, as if something tried to push against it from the inside. "Who's there?" Marcus demanded. No answer, only the sound of breathing, ragged and slow, from above. The boy whimpered. "He's watching." Marcus swallowed. "Brutus, stay close. I need to check that vent." The dog's low growl turned into a growl of pure warning. Marcus knelt and reached for the grill. The metal was cold, unnaturally so, and trembled under his touch. As he pried it open, the stench hit him fully. Decay, copper, and something more sinister. Fear itself, thick and cloying. Inside the vent, a pair of small, pale hands clutched the edges, dragging a thin, emaciated figure upward. The boy gasped, stepping back. Brutus lunged forward, teeth snapping at the air. Marcus froze, recognizing the shadowy outline. It wasn't a child, not entirely. Its head was too large, its movements too deliberate. Eyes gleamed from the darkness, reflecting the beam of Marcus's flashlight like twin lanterns. Then the voice, distorted, harsh, cruel, echoed from a vent. "You shouldn't have come here." Brutus barked violently, his body trembling with a force Marcus had never seen. The vent shuddered. The figure hissed, retreating back into darkness. Marcus felt the weight of the storm outside and the oppressive silence inside. He glanced at the boy, whose expression was a mix of relief and terror. "We need to get you out," Marcus said, his voice steady but strained. The boy hesitated. He has my sister." Everything went still. Marcus's stomach dropped. Brutus growled, low and guttural, his ears pinned, the primal warning clear as day. Whatever had taken her, it wasn't just human, and it wasn't done. Marcus realized the storm outside was nothing compared to the storm waiting for them inside. He took a deep breath, checking the dark corners of the arcade. The soft drip of rain was now a background symphony to the pounding of his heart. Brutus pressed close, ready to strike. But Marcus knew the dog wasn't the only one reading the room. Every shadow moved with purpose. Every whisper of wind carried intent. This was just the beginning. Marcus didn't speak as he guided the boy toward the back of the arcade, where the damp smell of mold and rust seemed strongest. Brutus stayed alert, sniffing and growling at every corner, every flicker of shadow. The boy's small hand clutched his jacket sleeve like a lifeline, knuckles white. "What's your name, kid?" Marcus asked softly, but the boy didn't answer immediately. "Ethan," he finally whispered. His voice was raw, fragile, as if he'd been carrying fear for far too long. "Ethan, I need to know everything. Where's your sister?" Marcus crouched to meet his eyes, careful not to startle him. Brutus pressed close, silent but unyielding, muscles coiled like a spring ready to strike. She's in the vent. The big one," Ethan said, pointing to a vent near the ceiling, just past the derelict prize machines. His lips quivered. He said if anyone comes, she won't make it. Marcus's stomach nodded. A vent wasn't just a hiding place. It was a trap. Whoever or whatever had done this knew the arcade's every inch, every shadow, every echo. Brutus let out a low growl, warning Marcus again. The dog's instincts were impeccable. He was sensing something Marcus couldn't yet see. "We're going to get her out," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Brutus, stay here with Ethan, all right?" Brutus stiffened but obeyed, settling near Ethan and keeping his gaze fixed on the vent. Marcus grabbed a flashlight in one hand and climbed onto the counter, inching closer to the vent. The metal grill rattled faintly as though something was waiting, watching, knowing he was coming. Then, a sound that froze his blood, a whisper, thin and ragged, from inside the vent. "You shouldn't be here." Marcus froze, his heart hammering. That voice wasn't just cruel. It carried something unnatural. There was intelligence, malice, and satisfaction in the cadence. He shook his head, trying to focus. "I'm taking your sister out. No one else gets hurt." From inside the vent came a shuffle, a metallic scrape, as if claws dragged along the edges. Marcus could barely see anything, just a shadow moving within. He leaned forward, flashlight cutting a narrow path into darkness. Then a hand shot out, a small, pale hand. "Help me?" It was faint, desperate. He reached and grabbed it, pulling hard. The hand slipped, and the vent rattled violently. Brutus barked sharply from below, leaping, teeth flashing, but Marcus had a focus. He grabbed again, this time pulling harder. And then he saw her, Ethan's sister, maybe 10, thin, clothes torn, soaked. Her face was streaked with dirt and tears. Her eyes were wide with terror, but bright with recognition when she saw Marcus. Thank you," she whispered. Marcus pulled her fully into the counter space, letting her collapse in his arms. Brutus barked again, protective and fierce. But relief didn't last. From the shadows of the arcade came a sound, a laugh, low and mocking. A man stepped forward, tall, lean, eyes cold as ice, but there was something familiar in the tilt of his head, the smug curve of his lips. Marcus froze. Recognition hit him like a punch. It was former Officer Rick Landon. Someone he had trusted, someone who had once called him a friend. "What were you doing here?" Marcus demanded, his voice sharp, shaking with disbelief and anger. Rick smiled faintly, a thin, cruel line. "You never did understand Willowbrook, did you, Marcus? You think you know people, think you know trust, but some things, some people, they're shadows. Always moving, always waiting." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You're the one behind this?" Rick's grin widened. "Not me, him." He gestured vaguely toward the arcade's far corner, where the shadows pooled unnaturally. Marcus turned, flashlight cutting through the gloom. Brutus growled viciously, hackles raised. There was movement, too fast to be human, too calculated to be anything else. It emerged from the darkness, thin, elongated, almost skeletal, its eyes glinting with something unnatural. Its limbs were long, joints bending in ways that shouldn't bend. It hissed softly, a sound like metal scraping bone. Marcus's stomach twisted. This was the terror Brutus had sensed, the truth Ethan had feared. Rick's voice cut through the tension, calm and deliberate. "I found him first, Marcus. I thought I could control it, keep it contained, but it's clever, smart, and it doesn't like to be told what to do." Marcus's fists clenched. "You use children as bait?" Rick's eyes flickered with strange guilt. "I never wanted them harmed. I only wanted to study him, understand him, but he doesn't play by human rules." The thing moved closer, each step deliberate, silent, terrifying. Brutus barked again, louder, lunging but held back by Marcus's command. The dog's growl was low, threatening, protective. Marcus felt it resonate in his chest. Marcus knew he had to act, but the arcade offered no cover, no advantage. Every move had to be precise. He edged closer, flashlight trained on the creature, and whispered to the children, "Stay behind, Brutus. Stay close, and don't make a sound." The creature hissed, tilting its head, as if assessing him. Its eyes flicked to Brutus, then back to Marcus. The dog growled, teeth bared, but there was caution in his stance, respect for what this was. Rick stepped forward again. "You don't understand Marcus. It can sense fear. It feeds on it. Don't make it angry." Marcus's mind raced. He had seen monsters before in stories and nightmares, but this was real. And it wasn't just brute strength. It was cunning, intelligence, cruelty. The children behind him pressed close to Brutus, trembling. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the far end of the arcade. Another child's scream, muffled but piercing, split the tension. Marcus spun, flashlight catching glimpses of movement. Rick's smug expression faltered slightly. The creature hissed, reacting to the noise, turning its attention. Marcus realized a horrifying truth. Rick hadn't controlled this thing at all. He had underestimated it. And now, it was deciding its own rules. He whispered to Brutus, "We move now." The dog leapt forward, growling, protective, guiding the children. Marcus grabbed Ethan and his sister, pressing them against him as they ran toward the exit. But the arcade seemed alive, twisting, shadows moving against them, doors slamming on their own, the creatures just following every step. Rick shouted, trying to intervene, but Marcus ignored him. Survival was all that mattered. Brutus led the way, senses sharp, every muscle ready to fight. Marcus's flashlight flicked over the creature one last time. It lunged from the shadows, long limbs flailing, but Brutus intercepted, teeth sinking, snarling, holding it back just long enough for Marcus and the children to reach the safety of the front doors. Outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. Marcus dropped to his knees, holding the children close, listening to the storm settle around them. Brutus stayed alert, chest heaving, eyes scanning the shadows near the arcade. The thing hadn't followed. Not yet. Rick staggered out after them, soaked, bruised, and defeated. His eyes held something Marcus hadn't expected. Fear. I couldn't control him, he admitted. Marcus didn't answer. He only looked at Brutus, who growled softly, not at Rick, but toward the arcade, toward the darkness. The creature waited. Patient, smart, calculating. The children were safe, for now, but Marcus knew the storm wasn't over. Willowbrook had secrets, and some of them were alive. The arcade loomed behind them like a grave, its windows dark and lifeless, hiding horrors that still breathed within. Marcus crouched beside the children, Brutus circling protectively. Ethan clutched his sister, their small hands trembling in his. Rain dripped from the eaves, but the storm inside Marcus's chest raged louder. The creature, whatever it was, still watched, waiting, patient. Rick staggered closer, soaked and shivering, a strange mix of fear and defiance in his eyes. "Marcus, it's not just an animal," he muttered, voice uneven. "I try to keep it contained. I thought I could, but it's smarter than us. Smarter than anyone." Marcus's gaze hardened. "You endangered children, Rick. And you think fear is an experiment?" Rick flinched. I thought I could. His voice broke. He was human, flawed, desperate. And, for a moment, Marcus saw a man drowning in guilt. But Marcus had no time for sympathy. Not when the creature was still alive, still stalking them from within the shadows. Brutus growled again, low and threatening, eyes fixed on the arcade doors. Marcus followed the dog's gaze and saw it. The vent's grill had fallen completely, metal bending outward, a dark shape slinking down toward the floor. Its limbs moved with inhuman fluidity, a predator perfectly adapted to the darkness, its pale, glinting eyes locking on them. Marcus grabbed a nearby metal pipe, gripping it like a weapon. "Stay behind me," he told the children. Brutus positioned himself between Marcus and the vent, hackles raised, teeth bared. The creature hissed, a sound that scraped along bones and rattled teeth, echoing through the empty streets. Marcus could feel it, feel the intelligence behind the sound. It wasn't just hunting. It was testing, observing, planning. Then Rick made a sudden move, stepping forward. "Wait! Don't!" The creature lunged, swift and lethal. Brutus snapped at it, growls tearing through the night. The pipe met the creature's side with a heavy clang, but it barely flinched. Rick screamed, trying to pull Marcus back. But the creature twisted, elongated limbs catching him off guard. Marcus swung the pipe again, narrowly missing its snapping jaw. Brutus darted, teeth sinking into its arm, but the thing shook him off with a strength that was terrifyingly unnatural. Marcus realized, in a gut-wrenching instant, that brute force wouldn't stop it. This wasn't a fight to overpower. It was a fight of cunning strategy and nerves. Ethan whimpered beside him. "Marcus, what is it?" Marcus swallowed hard, forcing his voice calm. It's not something you'll understand. Just stay close to Brutus, all right?" Brutus barked sharply, snapping the children out of their fear-induced paralysis. The creature hissed and retreated slightly, studying Marcus and Brutus, weighing its options. That was when Marcus noticed the way its head tilted slightly whenever Rick moved, the subtle recognition in its eyes. It wasn't just aware of Marcus. It was aware of Rick and of every single betrayal and weakness in the humans around it. Rick's face drained of color. It remembers me, he whispered. From before? Marcus's mind raced. Before what? Rick shook his head, panic in his eyes. I found it when it was the pup. Not like this. But I wanted to study it, understand it. I didn't know it would evolve. It remembers cruelty, fear, lies. It's like a mirror of the worst parts of us. Marcus realized, finally, the horrifying truth. This thing was not just dangerous. It was intelligent, morally aware, and capable of recognizing deceit. It had watched, waited, and learned. Every unethical choice Rick had made had shaped what they faced now. The creature advanced slowly, testing, circling. Brutus growled louder, standing firm, but Marcus could see the subtle tremor in his body. Even the K9 sensed that this was no ordinary predator. Then, in a burst of movement, the creature lunged at Rick. Brutus snapped in its path, but the man stumbled, hitting the ground hard. The creature hovered over him, a sinister shadow, teeth bared. And then it hesitated. Rick's eyes, wide with fear, met Marcus's. Please, help me, he begged. Marcus's grip on the pipe tightened. For a heartbeat, he understood something profound. The creature wasn't blindly malicious. It knew the truth of people's hearts. Rick had been weak, cruel, and manipulative, but he wasn't entirely evil. He had failed, yes, but he had also feared, hesitated, and ultimately shown vulnerability. Marcus stepped forward, his voice steady. Brutus, stay. The dog froze, waiting. Marcus dropped the pipe, holding his hands open, showing no threat. You don't have to hurt him. Not if you don't want to. For a moment, the air hung heavy with tension. Then, almost imperceptibly, the creature recoiled, its gaze flicking from Rick to Marcus, back to Brutus. It hissed once, long and low, and retreated into shadows of the arcade, vanishing as silently as it had appeared. Marcus exhaled, shaking, as the adrenaline began to fade. Brutus lowered himself, ears still alert, but relaxed slightly. The children clung to him, wide-eyed and trembling, but alive. Rick sat on the wet pavement, soaked, bruised, and broken. I didn't mean for this, he muttered, voice hollow. Marcus studied him, conflicted. He could hand him over to the authorities, could let the law decide, but the man's terror, his guilt, and the truth he had revealed mattered more. Marcus simply shook his head. You made your choices. But the creature, it knows everything now. You can't hide from what you did. Let that be enough. The children clung to Marcus, shivering. Ethan whispered, Is it gone? Marcus looked at Brutus, who gave a soft bark, tail wagging faintly. For now, Marcus said, but we remember, we learn, and we survive. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, and the storm clouds were breaking. The arcade behind them stood silent, waiting, patient, as though it had not yet finished teaching its lesson. Marcus held the children close, feeling the weight of the night settle around them. He glanced at Rick one last time, then at Brutus, and finally at the broken, silent town. Willowbrook would never be the same, but they had survived, and that small, hard-won victory mattered. Ethan's sister whispered, voice trembling but alive, Thank you for saving us. Marcus knelt, looking each of them in the eye. Brutus did the saving, he said softly, but we did it together. Remember that. The creature, wherever it hid in the shadows of the arcade, had been seen, understood, and for now, kept at bay. But Marcus knew one truth above all. Darkness, intelligence, and cruelty could never truly be destroyed. They could only be faced and survived. Brutus nudged Marcus's hand with his nose, soft and steady. Marcus smiled faintly, exhausted but grateful. The children clung to him, wet and shivering, yet alive. And somewhere deep in the shadows, the creature waited, patient, knowing that someday the game would continue. The night was quiet. The storm had passed, and Willowbrook, fragile and small, breathe again, just long enough for its people to remember what it meant to survive.